Video was intended to inform and educate the public.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Junkyard News. In today's video, we're going to talk about a lawsuit that has been filed for $10 million on a topic that's rather controversial. But it's important to understand the complexities within our legal system. And that is the truth behind police deception, exploring the legality of police lies. We'll be briefly discussing why police are allowed to lie and the legal framework surrounding the practice. When it comes to law enforcement, there's a notion that honesty is non-negotiable. However, the reality is more nuanced than we might think. Police officers are sometimes allowed to use deception during investigations, and today we'll briefly explore the reasons behind the practice. We'll also be discussing a $10 million lawsuit filed by a man in Michigan that was briefly detained just because he was walking while black. One of the primary reasons police are allowed to lie stems from the use of interrogation techniques, particularly the Reid technique. The method is designed to elicit confessions from suspects and it involves strategic deception. Police may provide false information about evidence, witnesses, or even the suspect's right to gauge their reactions and to encourage a suspect's truthfulness and to gain a confession. An example would be, you know that movie at the end? Cop pulls out a hair in a plastic bag and goes, "We have your hair on the body."
That's true. What do you got now?
Your hair, scumbag. Taking off Victor Sweet's dead body.
Body's not found because the body's under the ice. Now it's important to acknowledge that the use of deception by law enforcement is not without controversy. Critics argue that it could lead to false confessions, erode public trust, and potentially violate suspects' rights. Balancing the need for effective policing and protecting individual rights is an ongoing challenge with our legal system. At one time I was called in to perform jury duty. I was picked, sent to the courtroom along with others, where they proceeded to ask questions of the potential jurors. When it got to me and I was asked some questions, my response was honest. In regards to any conflicting feelings I had, I said, well, outside these walls, law enforcement is legally allowed to lie. And when you're legally allowed to lie in your everyday duties, what makes you think just because you're in this room that they're not going to continue that practice? I consider everything out of a cop's mouth a potential lie. As you could possibly imagine, I did not get on the jury. Yeah, go figure. Now let's get into the case at hand. It's fairly simple. On the date of this incident, he was in Keego Harbor, Michigan, where he was actually detained so long his attorneys feel it constituted an arrest. Back in July 2021, he dropped his 2 teenage sons off at a gym. He went for a walk. He was walking for exercise along a commercial street when an officer, later found out to be Officer Lindquist, drove up behind him and shouted, "Get your hands out of your pocket." According to the lawsuit, Lindquist told Chaney, "I'm going to frisk you because you look like you have a weapon and you're going to go break into cars." Now, during the interaction, Lindquist is also accused of calling him a dog. It's accused that he shoved him in the back and pushed him up against a squad car, injuring his groin. His wrists were hurt from the handcuffs that were put on too tight, and the ordeal lasted more than 20 minutes. Now, Chaney claims that he was only released from the detainment, which again his attorneys are now calling an arrest due to the time frame, and that there was no reasonable suspicion and no probable cause to detain him in the first place.
Because you're black. You are. He is.
He only released him after Chaney asked the officer, "What are you going to do next? Put your knee into my neck?" And he was referencing, of course, George Floyd. Citizens who have been detained can ask for a supervisor to come to the scene. And if a citizen does ask or a detainee does ask, an officer should call a supervisor out. Now, during his detainment, or de facto arrest, Brian Chaney says he did ask for a supervisor. And police officer Richard Lindquist told him that another officer who was present and on scene was in charge. But the problem is that second officer was not a supervisor or even a member of the Keego Harbor Police Department. Now, a complaint was filed and Lindquist was never disciplined, and his chief says that while a suspect has the right to request a supervisor, what the officer did was okay. An officer can lie in the field when he is not under oath, Keego Harbor Police Chief said in a deposition in Chaney's $10 million wrongful detention lawsuit. An officer can lie in the field when he's not under oath. How many people are being set free that are incarcerated because years and years later it comes out that the officer lied? Not only in the reports, but in the courtroom as well. It happens. When lying is permitted every day in your profession, you cannot believe just because you're in a courtroom it's going to change. I'm sorry. You're delusional if you think that. In a Gallup poll last year, 43% of respondents to the question said they have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in police in this country. Now that's down from 51% in 2021 and 64% in 2004. Gallup says 43% is an all-time low when it comes to how much trust the public has in police. A former officer in Louisville, Kentucky, admitted in court that she and another officer falsified information in a search warrant. Again, a sworn affidavit presented in a court to a judge. And you think these cops aren't going to lie in a courtroom when they lie every day out in the field? Again, is ridiculous. Again, if you think they're going to tell the truth in a courtroom, you are delusional. A former officer in Louisville, Kentucky admitted in court that she and another officer falsified information in a search warrant that led to the 2020 fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor. Police are allowed to use deception and present false evidence during interrogations and investigations to get suspects to admit guilt, according to a 1969 U.S. Supreme Court ruling. That does not mean you can lie on an affidavit. It does not mean you can lie in a court of law. Now, Chaney's attorney said you should not have the right to lie to a suspect. That's something that we're writing into the moral fabric of the most powerful institution in our society that has the authority to put you in a cage. Once someone realizes an officer has lied to them, trust is difficult to restore. Basically, I think police officers can lie just because they can. Most of the time, they are not caught in their lies, and even if they are, they get away with it most of the time. If you come to an understanding the police are not credible and they use deceit, it makes you suspicious of everything that comes out of their mouth. At any time, inside or outside a courtroom. Now, in conclusion, the allowance of police deception is rooted into the complexities of law enforcement and the pursuit of justice. What are your thoughts on the topic? Do you believe police should be allowed to use deception? Let's continue the conversation in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. Junkyard News. We'll see you in the next one.